I received a review copy of Trek 12 Himalaya from the distributor, so thanks to Hachette Board Games UK. A mountain climbing roll and write with progressive difficulty levels and extra content to unlock when you achieve certain goals. That's the hook. I'm Adam Porter. I design games and I review them on this channel with a focus on product design. Trek 12 Himalaya is a 2020 release from two prolific designers, the highly celebrated Bruno Cathala and the unsung Corentin Lebrat, a frequent collaborator with Antoine Bauza, Ludovic Maublanc and Theo Rivière. Trek 12 is an infinitely scalable roll and write. That is to say, it can be played with one player or 100. It takes around 30 minutes to play, and it should be suitable for anyone aged 8 or above. In Trek 12 Himalaya, each player has their own player sheet representing a mountain. 2 dice are rolled, and players must write down a number in one of the spaces on their sheet. They can either write the highest number, the lowest number, the difference between the two numbers, add them together, or multiply them. But each time you do this, you cross off a box to show which option you've used. And when you've used a single option 4 times, for example, taking the highest dice result on 4 different occasions, you can't use this option again. Each number that you write must be adjacent to a previously written number, and you're trying to create chains of consecutive numbers. The longer the better, as well as groups of matching numbers. When all spaces have been filled in, you score points for each of your sets, and the highest scorer wins. The game comes with 3 difficulty levels. In the expedition mode, you play a mini campaign, which involves playing the easy mountain, followed by the medium mountain, and then the hard one. And after each game, you gain stars, which will ultimately decide the winner at the end of the 3 games. There's a number of stars available for beating the target score for each mountain. There's another star for having the winning score, and a final star for beating the current high score for that mountain. Additionally, in expedition mode, there are a number of one-off ability cards laid out on the table, and whenever you create a set of connected 0s, 1s, or 2s, you can take an ability card to use later. These allow you to re-roll dice, write in a space which isn't adjacent, or skip a space when making a chain of consecutive numbers. At the end of each game, players check if any of the objectives have been completed on the back of one of the enclosed envelopes. For example, if a player has created a zone of exactly 3 7s, then they can open this envelope. The envelopes include additional components to add variety to the game, but I won't spoil the content here. Trek 12 is not a game I noticed upon release. I suspect because the rock climbing theme doesn't particularly grab me. I first noticed it when it came up in Hachette UK's catalogue of titles, and Bruno Cathala's name was the main draw. Cathala's games don't have a 100% record with me, but when they have connected, they've offered some of the best gaming experiences I've had. Abyss, Dicetown, and Raptor are 3 exceptional games from Cathala, which I come back to time and again. I confess to being a little bit jaded on roll and writes at this point, and likewise with campaigns and legacy-style unlockable content. Nonetheless, jaded doesn't mean that I don't enjoy these games. The very reason I'm jaded is because I've overindulged. Roll and writes and legacy games have provided a lot of entertainment over the last few years. I'm just not itching for more, and as a result, Trek 12 sat on my shelf for some time before hitting the table. Let's talk onboarding. The onboarding process starts with outward presentation, catching the eye of a potential purchaser. The box cover for Trek 12 is very literal. We have 2 trekkers casually sauntering up a pretty looking mountain. It's capably drawn and nicely composed, but it lacks drama or tension. A great box cover should tell me how I'm going to feel. This cover tells me that the game is going to resemble a gentle stroll. But that's not how it feels at all. It's a game rife with tension, failed connections, pushing your luck, and risk-taking. A little bit of drama would have lifted the cover image immensely. Combating, icy weather, hanging perilously from a cliff edge. Show me a little bit of adventure. Once we're into the box, it's pretty intriguing. There are 3 rulebooks: Solo Mode, the Trekker's Manual, which is essentially the basic game rules, and the Expedition Mode, which describes the campaign and the unlockable content. It's all very clear and easy to follow. I do wonder why the basic rules exist though. The game is simple, and the ability cards add some nice decisions without any substantial increase in complexity. I think it's a shame that they'll be left out of the game for many new players, which is going to dampen the experience a little bit. Of course, once these cards are introduced, the game ceases to be infinitely scalable, since each game requires 3 cards plus 1 for each player in the game. So perhaps that's the thinking behind leaving them out of this basic or express mode. As a side note, is this infinitely scalable feature, which is heralded in so many roll and writes, truly a hook that's worth pursuing? How many people genuinely purchase games with the intent of playing them with more than 6 friends? My gut feeling is that it's probably a tiny number. Don't get me wrong, it's a great feature to have available, but probably not valuable enough to justify sidelining enjoyable content just to make these rare, massive player count games possible. There are 2 cases where I've seen the feature cleverly exploited. Voyages is a print and play game which found massive success on Kickstarter. The game was very clearly built to be played online via Zoom or Skype, or whatever the in vogue video software is right now. This allows the creators to play the game online against other individuals across the world and stream it. The audience can even play along at home, and that's a great marketing tool. The other example is Rolling Realms from Stonemaier. Jamie Stegmaier consistently takes time out of his schedule as a game designer and publisher to play Rolling Realms on camera, inviting the audience to play along with him. This is a great way to build a community, something that Stonemaier has done better than almost any other publisher in the industry. For a box game like Trek 12 though, without a bustling online community, the feature feels insignificant. I don't know. I probably would have just chucked the ability cards in from game 1 and labelled the game 1 to 6 players. Let's get into my engagement ladder system. So I score games between 0 and 3 in 5 categories, and for each point scored, the game climbs 1 rung up the ladder. The game only needs 10 points to reach the highest rung, indicating a really engaging experience and a real favourite with me. For thematic immersion, Trek 12 scores 0. The theme doesn't really come through at all. It's a game about writing numbers in circles. But the presentation is nice though. For meaningful interaction, well, it's another 0. The only interaction is selecting an ability card before your opponents, but there are usually plenty to choose from and little reason to pick one over another. They're all equally beneficial. This lack of interaction is common to the genre, so I don't see it as a huge negative. For challenge and tension, well, it's a 2. The game is full of difficult choices, deciding whether to build chains of consecutive numbers or join matching numbers into zones, and the limited space on each map, particularly at harder difficulties, leads to many high-risk, high-reward dilemmas. Feedback describes the way in which a game responds to the player's decisions. In its basic form, Trek 12 is pretty limited here. Your earlier decisions do come back to haunt you or help you, so in that sense there's a good degree of progression in the game, but otherwise you don't interact with the game interface all that much. In the expedition mode, the game starts to offer up rewards for certain behaviours, in the form of the ability cards. This is a low level of feedback, but the inclusion of envelopes filled with physical rewards for completing certain tasks really lifts the game a great deal. As much as I want to win on any given round, I'm also driven to push for one of the envelope objectives, even if it costs me the game, just to see what's inside. This sort of feedback is really addictive while it lasts. It's a real strength of the package, so I'm scoring it a 3. For meaningful choices, it's a 2. There are really fun push-your-luck decisions to be made on every turn, but they're not hugely deep. The dice rolls play a big part in your success or failure. The overall score of 7 doesn't reach the top of my ladder, but it's not bad, and it's a pretty good score for a low interaction, essentially themeless roll and write. Moving on to my product design checklist. Is it innovative? Well, not hugely. It's probably the first time I've seen legacy elements incorporated into a roll and write game. I say probably because it feels like it's probably been done before and I'm just overlooking something. The gameplay of rolling dice and grouping numbers is very familiar from any number of games in the genre, with the main twist being the limited options for what you can do with the dice, adding them, subtracting them, multiplying, taking the highest number or the lowest. The game is a sort of legacy game, in that it contains envelopes of extra content which need to be unlocked. I say sort of legacy because no components are destroyed and you can always reset to game 1. The only permanent changes you make to the game are the recording of high scores, which feature as one of the goals for the expedition mode. And it's only sort of a campaign game. A single campaign involves playing 3 games, and the entire process can easily be completed in under an hour. The likelihood is that you'll open 2 envelopes in each campaign, meaning that within 3 or 4 of these mini campaigns, you'll have unlocked all of the extra content. None of the additional content is particularly earth-shattering, but it does add new decisions and it keeps the game interesting. For several years now, designers have been experimenting with drip-feeding content to gamers by including variants and additional components within sealed boxes or envelopes. I don't think we've reached the end of that journey yet. It's all a reaction to the massive success of the early legacy games, of course, and they were themselves reacting to the progressive storytelling and complexity featured in video games. I think it's now understood among designers that designing a true legacy game is a huge undertaking and not without its problems, not least the daunting complexity for newcomers and the requirement for a committed, regular group of players. Designers have learnt that a legacy light approach, similar to what we see in Trek 12, is a very appealing middle ground. Rainer Knizia added 20 or so variants into his polyomino game My City, but instead of simply listing them in the rulebook or allowing players to mix and match as we saw in earlier titles like Kingdom Builder, they were instead packaged as a progressive narrative, with players unlocking new content each time they played. That game was a big hit and a lot of fun, but I never felt the legacy aspect was all that successful, primarily because you couldn't reset and replay the variants that you enjoyed earlier. That Time You Killed Me is an abstract strategy game with unlockable content in a similar manner to Trek 12. This box is particularly intriguing because of the extremely eye-catching graphic styling, which makes you even more eager to open the boxes and envelopes within. Unlike My City, everything in the box is totally resettable. Zombie Teens Evolution is the best implementation of the legacy light genre that I've seen so far. The strength of the game over My City and That Time You Killed Me and Trek 12 is that it has an engaging, emergent narrative. The game tells you a story as you play, and while stickers are pasted all over the rulebook and even over components, everything is totally resettable, so you can easily return to your favourite variants from the massive number included. We're going to see more legacy light games like this, I guarantee it. So does Trek 12 answer a need? Well, I'm not seeing a huge gap in the market for this game. We're swamped with roll and writes, and while this is a good one, it doesn't surpass Welcome To or Cartographers, which for me are still best in class. Are there opportunities for growth of the product? Well, there's an initial burst of growth as you explore the basic game, then play through the expeditions, opening envelopes and unlocking new stuff. All that, plus the solo mode, will keep players going for a bit. And I believe there's additional content to be unlocked online, although I haven't explored that myself. That said, despite minor variations with new content, the gameplay is always very similar, so I can't see that it's going to hold anyone's attention for a massively prolonged period. The changes are nowhere near as radical as those seen in the other legacy light games I've discussed earlier. Trek 12 is essentially a very simple game. I like to end my reviews by plotting games on my idea execution matrix. A best-selling product will marry a fantastic central concept with amazing execution by designer and publisher alike. These games sit in the warmer red-orange part of the grid. The cooler blue section is home to the disappointing products, those which never find their audience. Trek 12 has a good core concept. It's a nice, if fairly pedestrian twist on the number sequence roll and write genre. The theme is meaningless, but is fairly well chosen as a backdrop for the game. And commercially speaking, producing a new roll and write game in the 2020s is a gamble. The market is saturated. Fortunately, there's some really nice execution here. The clear and simple rule set and the trendy right now legacy light features make the product appealing. I'm not sure the outward presentation is doing much for the package, but there's a lot to enjoy here. Trek 12 The Himalaya has several expansions and mini-expansions and a French language only sequel, Trek 12 Amazonia, which suggests that it sold pretty well in France at least. Perhaps the recent recommendation for the game by the Spiel des Jahres jury will lift its profile high enough to warrant an English language release. I'll be keen to check out anything further in this line, not least to see how the legacy light elements evolve. Let me know what you think about unlockable content in games. Would Quacks of Quedlinburg be improved if each new set of ingredient rules was hidden in an envelope, only to be experienced when you achieved a set goal? Would Isle of Skye be preferable, with scoring criteria which evolved in a predetermined fashion after each game, perhaps with an emerging narrative about Scottish whisky makers competing over disputed land? How about Dominion? What if each set of cards came in a separate package within the core box, only to be peeked at when you've jumped through a few hoops laid out by the designer? Or are you happier randomly mixing and matching variants from a deck to have a massively variable setup from day one? It's an interesting thought experiment reverse engineering these games to fit the modern vogue. Please subscribe to the channel, hit like and join me again for my next video. And until then, all the best.